Hello, friends. Welcome to Radicalized, where truth survives and we got your back. I'm Heidi Kuda. I'm here with Jim Stewartson, High Fidelity, Sean Anagram Connor, and these are some of the greatest minds in in understanding American extremism, corruption, and disinformation. We are so happy that you joined us again for this episode 12. We are very much excited about how globally we've been thinking and how global our guests are, and today will be no different. I wanted to open the show, though, with a brief correction. Anybody who joined us for the most recent episode of Rad Pod and Chill will know that Peter Thiel does not anagram out to the lizard.
Does not.
Does not, but as Sean, COVID fog brain at the time, did correct himself, Peter Thiel does anagram out to the reptile. So we here take responsibility for any inaccuracies, and we wanted to make sure that we cleared our slate of that one.
Yes.
We also want to give a shout out to the Cyber Thug Troll Brigade, because their efforts to discredit Jim Stewartson and the RadPod team has had unintended consequences of Jim Stewartson's excellent research on Michael Flynn now resulting in New York Times pieces on Flynn, and everywhere you look, the media is finally catching on to what a clear and present danger this man is to our country and democracies globally. And we are looking very forward to Jim shedding more light on some of his recent findings in our Hellscape segment. So that's number one. Yes, and there was a second thing that I thought was really valuable. Let me see. There was that quick thing, and also
some good support, right?
Yes. Also, we've been getting incredible support. So there's really two things three things: the intense scrutiny on Flynn, Jim being off Twitter now having an opportunity to really examine the folks that are part of this network brigade, and that has been very illuminating as well. And of course, the incredible Patreon support that we've been receiving.
Yes.
So thank you, thank you, thank you. And now, without further ado, I turn it over to my dear friend and erstwhile troll, High Fidelity, who has our word phrase of the week.
All right. By the way, you're not the first person to refer to me as erstwhile. I don't. Anyway. Our word phrase of the week this week is going to be both sides ops. And you have to ask yourself, What the hell does that mean? Both sides ops. Well, both sides ops is when you use forces on both sides of a political spectrum or a country or even a team, any organization or collective, you use the extremes of both sides to destabilize the center and thus destroy that thing. And we have a good example of that. Sean, if you could bring up that graphic. This is from the Peter Thiel funded MAGA 3X, what was it, Jim? The handbook?
Yeah, this is what they passed out to all the new initiates of MAGA 3X. Just so people know, MAGA 3X was a political action committee, a PAC, formed by Peter Thiel, Michael Flynn, Jeff Kaseya, Baked Alaska, and a who's who,
Cernovich.
Jack Posobiec, Cernovich, literally all of the worst people in the world got together and formed this thing called MAGA 3X. Oh, also Mike Flynn Jr. And MAGA 3X ran ops, including PSYOPs, like Pizzagate, which was literally a PSYOP. But they also infiltrated things. So this particular passage is from the MAGA 3X handbook, which is interesting because many of the people who are currently attacking me and were involved in this early stuff are also running both sides ops.
Can you guys read some of this? Because it's quite bone chilling.
I'll read it. We live in
Please.
so this is again from the writer, and I'm pretty close to identifying the writer, but not ready to say for sure yet. But the writer of this handbook, we live in an era in which people are seldom directly hostile. The rules of engagement, social, political, military have changed, and so must your notion of the enemy. An upfront enemy is rare now and is actually a blessing. People hardly ever attack you openly anymore, showing their intentions, their desire to destroy you. Instead, they are political and indirect. Although the world is more competitive than ever, outward aggression is discouraged, so people have learned to go underground, to attack unpredictably and craftily. Many use friendship as a way to mask aggressive desires. They come close to you to do more harm. A friend knows how best to hurt you. Or, without actually being friends, they offer assistance and alliance. They may seem supportive, but in the end, they're advancing their own interests at your expense. Then there are those who master moral warfare, playing the victim, making you feel guilty for something unspecified you've done. The battlefield is full of these warriors, slippery, evasive, and clever.
Wow.
What he's saying is you should
Wow.
be that person. You should go out
Wow.
there and do that.
Wow. That's
Like that
chilling.
is not a warning. That is an instruction manual. And that is exactly what these people do. They pretend to be your friend, they settle up to you. A lot of the people who are in this group are, like rabidly white supremacist, neo-Nazis, frankly. And they
Well,
have managed to infiltrate into the left, as whistleblowers and etc. When in fact all they are doing is being a both sides or two-sided op.
Wow. That is, again, we've talked about controlled opposition and we've talked about these various nefarious tactics. And I just think that there are some countries that have been doing this stuff for a long time, and Americans are not savvy to this stuff yet. We're simply not. And go ahead, Hi-Fi.
well, the thing we need to, put this in a bigger context. The Senate Intel report that came out, I forget when was that, 2017, 2018,
2018.
2018 it came out, and it specifically said in there, Russia has no problem supporting both sides as long as they're causing chaos,
As long
right?
as they disagree.
That's
As long
right.
as they
As long as
disagree. I mean, yeah, they're using both ends to destabilize the center, which is what's
yep.
happening in America.
That's why
Well,
we don't have a center anymore.
right.
Yeah.
Right? It's because now all it is both sides ops. Everybody is now on a side. We used to have, not to be all like ulty fulty, but we used to have a middle class. We used to have a centrists. There used to be
Yeah.
Republicans who weren't fucking like cult
Yep.
members and fascists.
And the thing most
And that's exactly what they've been doing for a long time. And I think what we're experiencing now is just sort of the crucible of that.
Well,
Yes.
I mean, the last two members of the GOP center would be Kinzinger and Cheney, and the GOP just censored them, right? So,
Right.
yeah. Yeah.
Well,
That
and the idea that Liz fucking Cheney is a
is
centrist is
yeah.
amazing.
Well,
This is
also
yeah,
highly disturbing.
this is the product of the continued de-radicalization of the political spectrum, because as individuals, I think, I align a lot more with someone, on the middle right than I do with someone on the far left or the far right. So there's the individuals like us are much more moderate, I think, in our thinking and our thought process and political ideology. But the wedges get drawn, so the politicians get further and further out, away from the people. So again, we're not being represented as accurately as we should be, right? I mean, they
I
get special
encourage.
interest lobbies, and radicalization pushes these politicians and political agenda way out to the extremes.
Well, I
And
would also argue that it's being done to our politicians. If
yes.
you look at some of our politicians on the right
Yes,
and the left
likewise.
who are very extreme,
It's
Joe
they're
Manchin
causing the
is,
fractioning.
I
Yes.
mean,
exactly.
in terms of both sides ops, right? Like Joe Manchin, fucking Cinema, Tulsi Gabbard. That's what's going on there. Is they are there with a separate agenda from the agenda that they promote.
Well, I do encourage people who identify as Republicans who are centrists and are old school and are moderates to disavow your party, because your party is not what it was even 5 years ago, 6 years ago. And I'm not saying it was so great. I'm just saying that I do understand people who have, a nostalgia for the GOP of old. But right now we have a serious infection, and Trump was the avatar they used to further this polarization, and disavow your party. Become an independent if you don't like the Democrat, but don't stand up for something that is now representative of something that is very, very heinous. And one thing I wanted to recommend, because we need people to watch episode 11. We need you to watch every single minute of our interview with the former president of Estonia. You need to know that we are being divided up in this both sides op, not over networks that have an ideology per se, although there is some of that, but it's just to cause this disruption so we can't have a shared narrative in this country when things like a pandemic occur. We are not able to have a shared narrative when we see these disruptions, which we're going to talk about, this trucker shit. Just know this is an attempt to make sure that we do not have clarity on truth and what's really happening. So I please encourage everybody to watch that episode. And high five before you get to why it matters. What a brilliant opening segment, guys. I do want to just give a shout out to Mary Trump, who, despite this current troll war we're in, gave us a fist bump for taking our podcast off Spotify, as she did for her amazing podcast, because we are trying to have solidarity and clarity when we know something is untruthful and inauthentic, despite the $100 million that may be paid for this. In fact, really, because of it, it's very important that we all take a stand for what is right in this country, and what is wrong is continued disinformation. So thank you, Mary Trump, for putting that fist bump our way, because it means a lot to us, particularly at this moment.
Also, guys, if you haven't listened to her podcast, you guys should check it out. It's hilarious, insightful. She's funny. She's smart. She brings her friends in. They have a great conversation. Also, Heidi, I might play it later, but I have when you discovered that on Twitter, I started recording the audio of your reaction, and maybe we'll put that on Patreon. It is fantastic. I thought you were having a stroke. It's remarkable.
Let's hope I don't have a stroke just yet. Let's hope I stick around for a little while.
I think Mary's awesome. Just saying it out loud. I mean the courage to be that person is really, really hard. And it's hard to really like somebody who's named Trump, but I do. So
well, let me just pull one out of the old joke bag here. Mary Trump, if you are listening, we'd like you to come on the show.
Of course. Yes, inevitably. And to think about the bravery, the brave heart that she must have. I mean, it's just incredible. She could have just hummed along and made her life very simple. Instead, on behalf of what is right, what is real, what is truly democratic, she, exposed the.
Her book is amazing. I listened to it on audio.
On Trump is
book. It like absolutely clarified Donald Trump. The dude's not a mastermind of anything, right?
No.
He is a sleazy, clever mafia boss, but he's not a fucking mastermind. And just understanding how that psychology arises, the family, the
horrifying,
fucked up shit that
the way that family was raised, and
I mean, a sociopath raises sociopaths. Like Fred Trump was a fucking monster, man.
Ask Woody Guthrie. Just ask Woody Guthrie. I will say that it's probably not that easy to bankrupt a casino and to go bankrupt 6 times, unless, of course, you're a fake rich guy who moves money for the mob. I'm not saying that's a fact, but why didn't Australia give Trump the opportunity to bring a casino into Australia? I think this dates back to like the 80s. They said because he's associated with the mafia. So what do? We fucking vote them in. We actually don't vote them in. I don't believe. Well, I believe that
Could have happened. There was
that
a
there
lot of
there
was.
were
talks
not there
around
was
that.
not election, like they didn't fuck with the election totals, but it
was the
there's a good
psyops.
10, 15 points that were the result of a bunch of fucking psyops.
That's right.
Could you
Yes.
guys imagine though if you were raised and every mistake that you made was corrected like by your father or something, and so you never felt like you had done something wrong? I mean, you'd be so fucked up in the head. I mean, that you'd never actually lost. If
Well,
everything that you did got corrected and everything you fucked up got fixed. I mean, in your head, you would think, "Man, I'm fucking batting 1,000."
Or worse, in your head, you know that you're a fraud and you're haunted by it, and your skin is so thin that
That's right.
every breath you take is to prove that you have validity. That's got to be a hell of a place to be.
Yeah,
But
there's a point. There's a point at which you couldn't figure out what was real and what wouldn't be real, right?
Mm-hmm.
Your reality gets so fucking twisted up that your own internal doubts lead into the real world, so that you have to always. It's fascinating psychology. The book is
when your dad is sending bagmen in to bring $3 million into your casino to try to fix your financial fuckery, and there's no consequences for this. That is. That is what we live with, and so and the next avatar that the extreme right wing in this country selects, I believe, is going to probably be even worse because
because there won't be a puppet. They'll be much smarter than Donald Trump.
Yeah.
I'm looking at Hawley and Cotton and
no, they've already got Pence. They're already rolling out Pence. They're
Well,
testing the water
Pence
with
is the
him.
CNP Coke favorite right now, but he's not the dark horse. I would go with Hawley probably. He's
DeSantis. No.
Chilling.
DeSantis now. DeSantis is going to get in trouble with Gates, I think.
Yeah.
Well, let's.
Anyway,
Yeah,
Tom Cotton is another one. Tom Cotton, in my opinion, is a Nazi. So it's just in my opinion.
Well, your opinion probably
only
based
because
on,
of the way that he acts and all of the things that he does and all of the things that he says. But it's just my opinion.
I have this evidence, but it's just an opinion.
Well, no, it is very important because he's not here to deny it. Okay, so let's breeze through why it matters, because I want to get on to Hellscape, and then I want to get on to our guest, who I will tease in a little bit.
Why does it matter? Why does it matter? Why high fidelity?
All right. First story this week, why it matters. More cyber shenanigans going global. What am I talking about? I am talking about the NSO group, which it was just released this week that the Israeli police have been using NSO group software to spy on Israeli citizens. Interesting other thing that came out about NSO group, America's own FBI tested out NSO group software, ultimately said no. Turns out another software group in Israel, former military intel people, Unit 8200, were another part of this group. And they also were using the same iPhone hack that NSO group was using. No word on who their customer list was or where it had been used. It also came out that Saudi Arabia has been buying NSO Group Pegasus software from Israel. And the reason this is weird is because, for time immemorial, Saudi Arabia and Israel have been at odds. It's the whole Jewish Islam fight, right? But when you have corrupt authoritarian leaders in power, like Netanyahu, Ehud Barak,
Right.
they will weaponize anything they have to make alliances across the globe. This particular alliance between Israel and Saudi Arabia resulted in the death of Jamal Khashoggi. They're killing people, as we talked about last week with journalists. They are assassinating journalists who are exposing their corruption. And that is why this story matters. Oh, another one that's also very important that I need to bring up with this whole cyber shenanigan things. Turns out Peter Thiel was secretly funding a group that was hacking WhatsApp. Why is that important? Well, look, this is abusive behavior. It's abusive behavior on many scales. If this was a man doing this to his female significant other, this would be abusive behavior and outlawed. Right? Just the fact that it's nation states doing it to their citizens, doing it to their journalists, does not make it any less abusive.
Here's a pop quiz. Who got paid 200 grand by the parent company of NSO?
That would be Michael Flynn through Q Cyber Technologies.
Ding, 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 ding,
Thank
ding,
you.
No, he just said didn't know anything about that.
Oh, sorry.
Oh, he didn't know anything
we have
about
the fucking
200
contracts.
Hey,
He
if somebody gives me 200 grand, I'm gonna fucking know something about it.
No,
Sorry.
He said he didn't. He told Lynn Wood he didn't know. He said I didn't.
He told Lynn Wood.
I heard it.
He also said that
Paragon of virtue.
He thought that Q was the CIA.
Yeah, he said it. I mean, it's got to be true.
I just want to
Blue Anon, one of those.
I just want to pause because for the very first time, everyone has beautiful lighting, and I want to just note this moment. We can see Hi-Fi in all his pink Scottish Irish glory. Got Jim, we got Connor. I just have to mark the moment. Okay, moving along.
Actually, I'm Heidi. I gotta say this. I'm kind of loving you with this whole down on the farm look thing. This is cool. This is
yes,
good. You're back to nature girl.
I'm on a writing sabbatical, working on a new book project on a beautiful farm with beautiful sunrises and beautiful sunsets, and the bird. I'm a birder. I'm a bird nerd, and the birding is just like, oh my God, it's magnificent. So I'm in heaven. But there's work to be done, and we have, this might be a good place to announce our guest, Brad Galloway. It's so exciting. He's coming from Ontario Tech, all the way from our northern neighbor here. He is an expert on bias and hate and extremism, works for the Center of Hate and Bias and Extremism up at Ontario Tech, and he matters so much because he's going to tell us why when you were embroiled in that world and then you come out of it to do good, why we have to stop thinking in terms of former. We have to think about what people are doing today and what action they're doing today to actually make the world a better place. So we cannot wait to speak with Brad. Now, let's get on to it, Hi-Fi.
All right, next one is that Ohio is the heart of it all. Well, why does this story matter? The story itself is that the Warren Steel Mill, which was having asbestos removed, the roof collapsed, trapping 4 people. A man lost his finger. Why does Warren Steel Mill matter? Warren Steel Mill was a site of a bunch of Ukrainian money laundering fuckery. There's a guy named Kolomoisky. He connects to Cleveland. A bunch of his buildings are being sued and attempted to be seized by the federal government. Because he was laundering money out of Ukraine. Another thing you have to look at with Ohio is the Roger Stone came up to Ohio, I believe it was in the right before 2010, to mess with gambling in Ohio. So there's probably dirty money going through gambling in Ohio, maybe. But why was Roger Stone be coming up to Ohio? Strange. Anyway, there's a lot of, when we talk about the global mob, a lot of it flows through Ohio.
Well, we do want to say that the states are often the petri dishes for this authoritarianism, so it's very important to keep an eye on them. I'm going to propose before your next news story that we put the legal briefs after our guest, Sean. Is that all right? Okay, perfect. So go ahead. Next up, Hi-Fi. Thank you for that.
All right. The next one up is something that actually we could probably talk to our guest about. It is about online charities, ? And why does this matter? Well, again, we've gone through the history of this. The reason I met Joe is the reason I met Jim is because of the Kyle Rittenhouse fundraiser. Sorry, I'm going so fast. Because of Kyle Rittenhouse.
Kyle Funhouse. We got a digital
Kyle Funhouse Rittenhouse.
We got a digital descent coming up. Oh my
Kyle
God.
Funhouse.
All right.
You
The
know what's going to happen to Connor's brain right now. Woo!
What? Yeah. The
Yeah.
Kyle Rittenhouse fundraiser on Give, Send, Go, right? I wanted it taken down. They would not take it down. I started digging into the network behind it. I found Ellen Wood. I found John Pierce. I found a bunch of Silicon Valley people. Now Give, Send, Go is back at it again, right? And Give, Send, Go is raising money for the Freedom Convoy 2022, which links to, and there's all sorts of craziness going on here, links to a site called adoptatrucker.ca that is run by War Room Canada, War Room being the name of Steve Bannon's podcast.
Mm-hmm.
And as I was watching the fundraiser today, despite them having supposed DDoS and botnet attacks going on, they were literally raising $1,000 a minute over about 15 minutes.
That's not suspicious at all.
Not suspicious at all, no. Here's Russia Today going, oh my goodness, look at this poor fundraiser for our truckers being attacked by the internet. Oh, how awful.
Oh, how awful. Come look at this fundraiser where you can put money in the fundraiser.
Exactly.
Exactly. How awful. But here's the really funny part. Hold on. Here's the really funny part. Because they were being hit supposedly with these botnets and DDoS attacks, etc., who should come to their aid but the video company started with $500 million by Peter Thiel, Rumble. Here, have some servers, have some IT stuff. We're glad to help. So we have Peter Thiel's operation backing up this Give, Send, Go, which I don't know. Looks like it might be something with Steve Bannon. War Room CA, never heard of it. Might be a media company, don't know.
I did send all this information to a Canadian MP who's really pissed about all this stuff. So we're going to ask him to follow up because Give, Send, Go, and it's noble, churchy, right wing, bullshittery.
If you pull up Give, Send, Go's homepage, if you pull up Give, Send, Go's homepage. Earlier today, I was looking at it, literally like not half an hour ago. They have a fundraiser for John Eastman on the front page. It was Eastman. Yeah. Eastman wrote the Eastman memo, which was used to try and
Give, Send, Go is the Rumble of YouTubes, right?
I'm sorry, that's true.
It's the Rumble of YouTubes of GoFundMes. Like GoFundMe.
Exactly. It's
GoFundMe
it's the
has
same
a good
shit.
sense
It's
to
just
cut
like,
this
oh,
off.
here's your civilization version. We're gonna go create this anti-civilization version.
Yeah.
We're gonna go create this version of every single thing that you do that's mirrored and fucked up.
Yeah.
Well,
hey,
$1,000 a minute though. $1,000 a minute.
Imagine all the
is that real? If that is real, wow. If not, that's probably automated. If that is automated, is that money laundering? And Sean, we have that clip from Marty where we talked about
Marty.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. Let me grab that.
This is an IRS senior investigator, retired, but he is an IRS man. And
he's my spirit animal. I love Martin Shield.
Get the fundraise off of murder, and that's what he did. And what it turns out is this website, Give, Send, Go, was one of the go-to online fundraising portals for a bunch of these right-wing people who went to the insurrection. And we're talking hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars, right? So my theory, and I got this whole network, we can talk about that some, but my theory is that what they were doing was they were taking prepaid credit cards, like a prepaid Visa, prepaid MasterCard, whatever, right? And they were using other people's names that they'd gotten from like polling data, right? If I've got your name and I know what party you vote, I can make donations in your name through WinRed or ActBlue using a prepaid credit card. Right. And that's what I think they were doing. What does the IRS have or what does FinCEN have where they could track this? Is this money laundering? Yes or no? It's a prepaid card thing.
Okay. The short answer is it's a type of money laundering. It's called structuring.
There you go. It's called structuring.
Well, that is what is that, episode 8, I think?
That was like 4 episodes ago, episode 8. Yes.
Yes. So we recommend everybody endure Marty's 3G and watch that episode because it's phenomenal. Okay, so you've made a wonderful case, and we do look forward to an investigation. And as you noted, GoFundMe shut it down because they thought it was sus, and then they jump on to Give, Send, Go, which I think did you actually look and see the history there and see if there was also some other examples of Give, Send, Go fundraisers other than the Rittenhouse one? And
well, there was Rittenhouse, there were Proud Boys fundraisers,
yes.
There was travel to Washington, D.C. for the
yes.
insurrection fundraisers,
yes.
There were Oath Keeper fundraisers.
Yes.
Well, now there are prisoner fundraisers.
Okay.
They're
A shitload
okay.
of them. Yeah,
There you go.
a bunch of insurrectionists raising money. Also, one of the big promoters of the Convoy thing is guess.
Michael
Flynn. Have a shot of vodka, everybody.
Everybody drink. Indeed.
Every
time we say
new Mike Flynn drink rule.
Okay,
should
except
we
for
do
me,
a very
I'm
special Hellscape after our guest because
you know what? Is Brad already here?
He's in the guest room. He's waiting.
Oh yeah, why don't we just bring Brad in and we'll do the legal briefs, the Hellscape after our guest, because as we make the introduction here, I do want to say that there's a very exciting thing happening for his son, so we'll start there.
Great.
All right, yeah, bring in Brad. Yay! Thank you, Brad, for being here.
What's up, man?
Brad?
Hey there, how's it going, guys?
We're so happy that you're here with us, and I do want to make an announcement that your son's hockey team made the playoffs, and that is why we're going to breeze through this. That's pretty exciting.
Yep.
Brad Galloway, you are the coordinator of the Center on Hate, Bias, and Extremism at Ontario Tech University. We don't want to waste a minute of your time, so we would like very much for you to kind of give us a brief intro of your background and how you came to this position, and then we're just going to jump in with some of our questions for you and your team.
Sure, yeah. So I guess I've been in and around the work of countering violent extremism and preventing violent extremism now since about 2015 or so. However, before that, from about 99 up until 2011, I myself was tied up in far-right movements in the United States and Canada. Ended up leaving in 2011. Short on short, spent the next four years trying to figure out what life looks like in society without gangs and everything else that I was involved in before. Left that for multiple reasons. Was starting a family, wanted to pursue professional goals, but also seeing the compassion and love from folks that I probably didn't deserve at those points in my life. And looking back on it, as I was having a family of my own, I was like, man, how can I help others realize what these movements are, right? And all that kind of thing. So
thank you so much for sharing that. I used to be an undercover investigative news producer for many years, and the people on the streets doing the most effective work in gang intervention were former gangbangers themselves, and they not only had the trust of people, but they also had the insight. And so I think it's really valuable. I asked one time, what was the difference between those who got out of the life and those who didn't? He said, quite frankly, sometimes it's intelligence, sometimes it's a teacher or a mentor who steps in. But what for you was the transition that got you on your path to doing good?
I'd say during the movement in and itself, there was a lot of disillusionment, seeing that a lot of these movements are more about social things, and I got wrapped up in my late teenage years when I was at a vulnerable point. So recruited by somebody who saw those vulnerabilities, and then ended up in these groups, and then of course ultimate my wife, and she continues to be a huge supporter of all the different things that I'm doing. But she issued an ultimatum to me in 2011 saying that it's either that movement or our relationship and our family. So prioritizing things like that. And also she helped me during the movement see the different problems with the ideology and those things that you're not really thinking about, because a lot of my ties to the group were like just because of I just wanted to be part of something. I wanted to belong somewhere. I wanted to have all those things. And she helped me see those things. And then meeting some, like you were talking about, law enforcement and investigative stuff. So I had met some folks from law enforcement who I know there's a lot of bad press on them, but there's some of these folks really just gave a human face to that, and they were investigating our groups, and I was able to see them as human beings, as not as the enemy of like the group wanted us to feel like they were.
Right.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was about accepting life back into society without having the us against them evaluations going on all the time. It's the cops, it's Antifa, it's this, it's that. That was
that
what was
other
surrounding
that Jim always talks about. It's that other.
It's
Yeah.
the out group and the in group, right? It's
Yeah.
I mean, I just wanted to say, congratulations for figuring it out.
Yeah.
It's hard
Wonderful.
to figure out, and bless your wife for helping you see the way. Like I've talked to a lot of people who've been in difficult and high control groups, and it's getting out of it is traumatic and difficult and shameful, and I'm well done.
Yeah, it takes it's that saying, it takes a village. It really does a lot of times too, and also looking back and seeing the violence, and also, I mean, that loops into today to a lot of the work that my center does, looking at these groups. And also I'm working in two organizations, one out of Alberta and one out of Chicago, that we look at helping folks leave these movements, so doing direct intervention work. And man, the amount of stuff you can learn from, just like you said, talking with other people and trying to figure out what it is. Like, what are they going through? These people don't just like wake
That's
up
right.
one day and go, yeah, I want to join white supremacy, or I want to
Yeah.
join, this criminal gang. It doesn't work like that. There's a lot of different things that are going on. So,
you said
trying to return-
vulnerabilities, right? Vulnerabilities
Yes.
are the key. That's how they grab you, is by attacking those vulnerabilities, and then it's coercive propaganda that they just keep repeating until you start to believe it. And I'm curious how your work has changed now that, at least to my eye, and I've been following all this a lot. The rise of neo-Nazi movement and fascism in general, but particularly neo-Nazi movements on Telegram, etc. In the last year, it seemed to have exploded, as far as I can tell. I'm curious if you've seen that as well.
Absolutely. I mean, I think a huge example is this of what we're facing right now in Canada, across the whole Canadian landscape. We're looking at this trucker convoy,
Yes.
and its connections to the United States, and its connections to transnational white power movements, and then that sort of immediate go-to. I mean, I was counting down the minutes until somebody would say, "Oh no, the guy with the Confederate flag, the guy with the swastika flags, those are Antifa plants. This is the rhetoric of the right." I lived in those groups. I knew every moment, every little thing that sort of played out. And, I even had, family members that were like, "Yeah, truckers, go." I'm like, let me tell you something about what's really behind this, is that these are the organizers. These are extremists who are organizing this thing. And today I saw something that really sort of, you were sort of talking about echo chambers. And that's what they create. They create this massive echo chamber that they only live in there. So then it becomes normative. It becomes like, it's like, well, this is how we live. We live in this, right? And I've seen like really normal, odd people that you would assume would never become involved in this stuff, like up to their foreheads in this stuff, and really like, and the funding, like from all of it. And I'm looking at it going, none of this is surprising.
Right.
Not to me, but to the world, it's kind of like, well, this is a new type of thing. And I'm like, well, if you look deeper, like you said, in Telegram, you're going to get the real extreme folks, like accelerationists, those folks, they love this stuff. They live for it because they don't have to do anything. Now they don't have to organize. They don't have to do anything. They could just watch, and we see them talking about this every day through our research. Let's watch it fall. Let's watch to see what happens. Let's watch as everything gets destroyed.
Let's help it happen even, right?
Yeah, let's put it out there. Let's put bots. Let's do all we can to help. And,
bring it down and attack, people who are trying to tell the truth and are trying to do something about it.
Yes.
Well, journalists specifically, I see a lot of my colleagues that are out there just trying to report on this stuff, and they're getting beer cans whipped at them. They're, worse things are happening. I've seen videos of just anti-Semitic like trope going on. Like there's a video of a guy holding a sign, about really, really disgusting anti-Semitic stuff relating to the Holocaust, and he was talking it through, and I'm like, this is no different than what we were seeing with Ernst Zundel in Canada, the Holocaust denial, the Heritage Front, all of that stuff back in the 90s. Yeah. It's just exchanged for, and maybe now it's just a normal looking dude, not a dude dressed up in a Nazi outfit.
Well, now you have Tucker, right? It used to be that replacement theory was something that you would only find in these weird little chat rooms, right? Mm-hmm. But now fucking Tucker Carlson does it, right on TV to millions of people. It's
and that's the thing. That's so one of my colleagues, she wrote a book called The Extreme Gone Mainstream, and that's what they're trying to do, man. And this is it. This is so long as they can push it into the mainstream populace, to say, well, I saw it on Fox News, and that's acceptable.
Yeah, that's right.
But they don't even understand that they've created an echo chamber in such a place that reaches millions and millions of people every day. And
I think they understand. I think they're doing it intentionally.
He's talking about the people who are receiving it.
Who are receiving. Okay.
Fair. Your neighbor who you think is just a regular phone. And then I'm sure it happens to all of us. Like there's somebody we know who is now into QAnon or into like Trumpist stuff or whatever.
Yes.
I've met people who I never would have thought would have gone that route. But here we are. This is it pushed into the mainstream so that everybody can accept it. And I mean, the media in and itself, sometimes I will say they don't do it much justice by giving a platform. I saw that, some of them have interviewed, these folks too much. Some of these guys,
parroting propaganda is not news. If you're actually going to give a platform to those who are infecting the psyche of countries and globes and neighbors and whatnot, then you become part of the problem. So it's not being done in a way that's useful, which is why I always bring up Germany and its laws against hate speech and how the EU has some privacy protections that we don't have. But I do want to say what I'm hearing from you and what I think it's very important that our viewers hear is extremism knows no borders. No. So this is basically a global infection. And we have had friends from Norway who they did the film People You May Know. They also just did a film Disinformed. The end of Disinformed, which shows how the wellness community has been infected, ends with Jim and Hi-Fi and Sean have done so much work exposing QAnon, but it ends showing how this global infiltration is occurring, and we don't have that shared narrative that we need in order to say this is what's happening. Because people are living in those echo chambers, it's very difficult to have a conversation with somebody who is eating up what Fox News is giving them or the Canadian version of Fox News. I think you're smart enough to not have Fox in your country, but clearly the infection is still occurring. I blamed America, but apparently you're it's beyond blaming a certain country for it.
Well, we have our own versions of those things. I think that's the unfortunate reality that we're living here. I mean, I saw rhetoric coming from one of our main. I won't say them out loud because I don't want to give them any shout outs.
Right.
But they were out there today parroting this junk again about how these folks are just misunderstood people, and they have the rights of all Canadians in mind and all this kind of thing. And I'm sitting here going, the Canadians that I know, not quite. This is a gross misrepresentation of Canada, and it's only less than 10% of Canadian truckers that actually are unvaccinated. More than 90% are vaccinated. So it's not about any of that vaccine stuff. It's about white supremacy and the rest of that other stuff.
So I have two questions for you. All right. And the first one has to do with the truckers, right?
Yeah.
So you say there's a very small number of truckers who are actually unvaccinated. You're saying that this is not representative of Canada. And yet today, from I think about 5:15 to about 5:32, I watched on Give, Send, Go. I watched this fundraiser.
Oh yeah.
And they were literally getting $1,000 a minute in donations. Are there that many Canadians who care about this that much? And if not, why aren't the Ottawa police going to take a look at this? Any ideas?
Well, they are. I know right now our intelligence community is reeling right now because looking at GoFundMe. So one of the things they wanted from GoFundMe was the donor list, right? So they could look at who and what entities these were coming from. Most of it was American. So they had made about 10 point something million on GoFundMe originally. And then it switched to the Give, Send, Go, which I think I looked just before I came on here, and it was like 2 point something million dollars that they had raised. And
it's over 3 million now.
Okay. So we're into the same issue that we were having with the GoFundMe thing, is that some of it was tracked, as far as I can understand, it was tracked to American evangelical fundamentalist organizations, stuff like that. That was some of the cases where they were talking about that. They're also talking about American far right establishments getting involved in this, the different conservative think tanks, stuff like that. I mean, some of the donations on the original GoFundMe, there was ones that were upwards of $30,000 to $40,000 at a time.
Yeah,
that's
not suspicious.
Like that to me is not like your average, run-of-the-mill trucker who's just got 40 grand sitting there ready to, support the cause.
What you said before was really important, I think, is transnational white supremacy, right?
Yeah.
That's what this is. This is organized crime. It's not. The boundaries between nations are irrelevant to it, right? So God knows who and what they've roped into getting to pay this. But I mean, I've seen Flynn and QAnon going crazy trying to fund this thing, and they have a lot of money. They have a lot of people, tens of millions of people. It's not hard to raise a couple
$1,000 a minute. Wow.
Yeah.
Anyway, all right. So my second question. And I apologize if this brings up bad memories. When I was a young man growing up, and there you go, 3.5 million already. When I was a young man growing up, there were white supremacist skinheads where I grew up. And how they funded themselves was through criminal activity, selling methamphetamines predominantly, but also marijuana, LSD, et cetera, et cetera. Do you find that this criminal activity in white supremacist groups is something that happens a lot? Or is it lessening now? Or where do they get their funding?
So good question. There's a lot to it. It's evolving. It's always evolving. So that's my first little bit of that. And back in the day, it was through mail orders. It was through websites. It was selling music and literature. Resistance Records was one of the bigger ones. Back in the 90s. They made 1 year, and granted, this was 1998. They made $1 million in 1998. That's a lot of money.
Yeah.
And what's that funding? So that's funding also Blood and Honor, which is a listed terrorist group in Canada.
Yep.
And also they had a distribution that was selling these magazines, and they're an international group that gets like once they realized the internet and how they could fleet the internet with this and do whatever they want, basically from Australia, New Zealand to Germany to wherever they could do anything to fundraise for the cause. So the different chapters of that group would do whatever was acceptable under their country's hate crime laws and things like that. So in Canada it was tough to operate, but they figured out ways to circumvent that up until I think 2019 or 2018 when they were thrown on our list of terrorist groups. So that being said, in today's world, we have all these different avenues that they can fund things through. They've up until I think 2 years, I'd say, their music was really, really still present on mainstream platforms like YouTube and things like that. And they were making tons off that because all they have to do is put a group logo in there or like put a link at the bottom to a website where they go, and then they could get people to go there and shop and buy stuff.
Yeah.
They're manipulating things like this trucker convoy thing. Even Amazon was selling like "fuck Trudeau" symbols, all that kind of stuff. Up until 2019, I still saw Mein Kampf and Turner Diaries available on Amazon. So luckily that stuff is gone from that, but it's still available. Like you could go get it if you really want to get it. You can get it. And that's
let's look at these numbers. Look at
anonymous donor.
21,500, 20 grand.
So what's really disconcerting to me?
Jesus,
is
wait a second.
What's disconcerting to me
legitimate.
is but here's the thing: when you talk about the trucker convoy and you talk about the 10% that's unvaccinated, and now our friend Dave Troy has shown the examples throughout the world of this trucker op, and my friends here on the show have already heard me always talk about how Ruth Ben-Ghiat, the foremost expert on Italian fascism in America, explains that 100 years ago, truckers were hired to wave the flags and to go beat up people in violent mob, staged activities. And then that was harnessed by Mussolini. So again, none of this is new. But what's very distressing to me is you have a 10%-ish, unvaccinated rate, but it dominates the news. People sit at home with their televisions. They think this is much more, they think it's much bigger than it is. And because of this money behind it, and like what we're seeing there, they actually push it into the forefront of the mainstream, even though it is not mainstream, even though this is still fringe. And this is the manipulation that is continually going on. And quite frankly, it's maddening. I have two questions for you as well. Then I'd like the team to ask their final questions because I know we only have you for 15 more minutes and we got to get going. Two things that you bring up that are super, super important. One is that you did an incredible report on referring to people as former. At what point, and we all have it. I was a Fox 11 news producer, and all of us have our pasts. And this team here is doing such excellent work that there is an entire brigade of cyber thugs dedicated to always bringing up any past indiscretion we have. And we all have we're human. We all have a past, but we are very much, I know I am. I'm very much trying to do the important work of the time with the skill set I have. Many of us have atoned for, whatever happens, but we are what we are. But at what point do we tell people to stop with the fucking former and look at the work and look at the action that's being taken today by someone like yourself?
Yeah, that's, I think, correct me if I'm wrong here, but I think you're talking about sort of the labeling situation that goes on. Folks in the world, and I've some of my greatest friends are former black gang members, things like that. Like, and we have these labels and we talk about this stuff and we're going, really? Like, we're doing human work now, whether it's out there trying to stop gun violence or we're trying to stop gang violence or stop racism, hate groups, all this kind of stuff. We are a collective working in our areas trying to make the world a better place, right?
Yeah.
So are we really, like, when somebody says, are you, you know, and now, you know, it's been 11 years since I was involved in those movements. Am I really no, I'm not a former neo-Nazi anymore. I think I'm part of society now. So moving away from the label, how do we determine when we're done with something? Yeah. I talked to former police officers who are like, I hate me as a cop, but still people say, oh yeah, you're still a retired former such and such police officer. And they're like, no, I don't want to be that. Now I work as a guy at a craft brewery. Well, yeah, so be that. That's okay. That's your deal. That's who you are now. But not saying taking away from our experiences from our past. Those are very useful for us to inform whatever work it is or whatever life we're living now, right? So it's important too when people are formally involved in whatever it might be, that we think about the traumas and the things that they have experienced in their lives too. Just like you guys asked, you know, I don't bring up stuff for you to think about. It's okay if we're doing it in such a way where we care about each other and we say, hey, is it cool if we talk about this? How can we, how can we talk about this without hurting you, hurting society? You know, we have to be more mindful about each other. And I think that it definitely winds into what we're seeing in the world today, whether it be the Trump division between Republicans and Democrats, all that kind of stuff. If we just build back a little bit of respect for each other, I don't know. I think it might have been Martin Luther King's daughter was on Twitter talking about this stuff. If we could just look at each other as human beings again, and some of our crisis will go away. We won't encounter each other as enemies all the time. We should be more welcoming. Yeah, we want dialogue and we got to say some tough things sometimes, but like, can we just look at each other as like, you know, we're not always just enemies and trying to befoul each other from whatever we're trying to do, you know?
So speaking of that, you know, going over your report, and you talk about direct intervention, and I found it really interesting. Is that, or what your opinion would be or guidance, is it possible to have direct intervention online only? Did you know, like, can you have a direct intervention that's affecting in a positive way purely online, or does there have to be a human component? You have to sit with that person in the same space to really affect some change.
Well, I mean, I can say from a lot of my work that's done at Life After Hate, we are 100% online, doing outreach with human beings and family. You know, so we are working with these folks. We're not having to travel around, you know, from country to country, but we are doing international work, similar to the work that I'm doing with the OPV, which is based out of Alberta. We're looking at helping people in whatever ways we can get through this tough time. And it's not actually just the individuals that are involved. Sometimes it's like a family member or a friend that is looking for information about how to help these other folks in their life.
Yeah.
So,
that's great. Yeah. It's great to hear, because some pushback that I've seen online is the fact that, you know, people don't know what they don't know. One of the things that you always hear is, you know, you can't just tweet somebody out of the, you know, something. And there's this there's this notion that you can't have, you know, direct impact and help someone just by communicating with them online. And I'm really glad to hear you say that that's otherwise.
Yeah.
We talk a lot about empathy on this show, and as Jim always says, no one brainwashes themselves. I have one more question. You want to go, Jim?
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
Well, I want to make sure that we address this because I think it'll be a question viewers have. So in my broadcast news experience, when I did a lot of work on environmentalism, I would look to countries that were doing a good job with, say, recycling. A lot of them were working with the polluters to pay for the recycling. When I look at disinformation in the countries that are actually managing to fight back against disinformation, a lot of them work with big tech to have them underwrite it. And it looks like Meta, aka Facebook, may be underwriting some of the work that you do. And can you kind of illuminate how that works for our viewers? Because many of us, including myself, look at Meta like that big, you know, psyop gun to our brains. So
yes, I will also say that a lot of my work, I've done work with Google, I've done work with you know, YouTube, I've done work with TikTok.
Great.
So I'm getting an idea of the sphere of like what the work that's going on. I will say that formally, I worked on a project with Facebook before they were Meta, and they are trying. There are efforts that are there that they are trying to understand this dynamic. Particularly, I only talk about my own lane, but dealing with hate speech, dealing with groups getting onto their platform and how they're doing that, how they're talking, and they're trying to understand all of those things, because just as soon as they evolve their technology, these groups are also evolving in how they co-opt or how they mess with technology, right? So there's that piece. At our center, we are not sort of in this, like we're doing research about social media and hate. That's why we're having this symposium this coming week, talking about hate on social media platforms. There'll be a wide range of guests there, talking from civil society solutions to big tech solutions to government policy solutions, and also sort of our first day is going to be looking at the contours, so the landscape of hate online, right? So and it is, Meta is they are involved in this idea of trying to look harder at this. We need to put a lens on this, because look, we're all at times the big companies, they understand, they are all sort of, I hate to use this word, but they're all kind of complicit in the sense of look at YouTube, for, like I said earlier, all the hate music that was there up until like just a few years ago. Like, what are we, like, YouTube has existed for a lot of time before 2018, and Meta, they've known that these folks, particularly like charismatic leaders and groups that are like utilizing Facebook as a meeting point, like, we know that, like, let's get our shit together, right? Like, and that is sort of, when we start working together, what can we learn? Let's try to learn as much as we can, right? And I guess in my sense, I'm trying to keep the door open of trying to be Switzerland by design, of trying to invite everyone to the table.
Good for you.
Let's all yell at each other and then see what we can figure out, right? But
right. Well, thank you for addressing that. It means a lot to us. We only have 7 more minutes, so hi-fi, Jim, Sean, Heidi.
All right. Talked about terrorist groups. One of the groups that has been recently designated terrorist group by Canada is the Proud Boys. The Proud Boys were started by Gavin McGuinness, who was the former founder of Vice Media. How is it that Vice Media has generated all these questionable behaviors? They are attached to the death of John McAfee. They are attached to the assassination of the Reinhold Antifa fellow out in Portland. How is Canada dealing with Vice as an organization, given that
the former senior editor is like showing my personal information, online as a way to disparage me? Like, what kind of operation is that?
Yeah. What can you tell us about that?
So, we learned some fantastically disheartening things, and this is some media companies are, I would say, right now, Vice has a different feel to it, though. A lot of their folks are writing in the Canadian context, because that's the one I know the best right now.
Yeah.
But they are writing some great stories about hate groups and things like that, which has been nice to see. However, when we really think about people who are working with Vice, I always think about Gavin, and I don't like thinking about him, but it is
right.
It is what it is, in the sense of that's where he came from, and he created this group, and it's often people who were charismatic leaders within their normal organizations who then can attempt to switch to extremism and be very effective. So he has, I'm not trying to say he's very effective right now, because I have tons of information that would tell me otherwise. But it's in the past, we see, research from Mark Ham's research on charismatic leadership and like prison gangs and stuff like that I see a lot of that in today's present day kind of folks that come out of mainstream and move to extremist things, because you know what? It's a grift in itself, for lack of better term. It's another thing that they can get attention for and make money, right? Like, I mean, we look at people like Milo. Milo realized that too, and he could make tons of money. But then when outed, when bad things come along, things happen. And same happened to Gavin, I think. Like, his character was realized after a time. they had to switch up the leadership. But when it comes down to learning the ropes of mainstream media and how to, man, he had that put them in a different position. The Proud Boys, it was, and I think that's one of the reasons why why Canada decided to put them where they are now, is because they knew that they had access to money and leaders that could really, really put the far right in a different place in Canada. So I do think adding them to the terrorist list, at one point I was like, oh, that's kind of rough. That doesn't sound right. But then I was like, but the reach is there, though. The transnational reach, it's there.
Yeah.
That's problematic.
Well, they had members of the Proud Boys were doing security for Roger Stone,
Right.
and they were present at the January 6th insurrection. And it boggles the mind. It tracks back to Vice Media. Oh, and Vice Media just recently opened an office in Saudi Arabia, which, talk about an authoritarian regime. Wow.
Well, it's important to note that we have an infection throughout the fourth estate, and that we have Vichy reporting everywhere. So it is important to note that some of the work that we see from publications are amazing, and some of it seems very suspicious.
Potentially not amazing.
So potentially not amazing. So Jim or Sean, who wants to have the final go, because he's got 2 minutes, and I don't want him to be late for his son's hockey match.
Hockey's important,
I miss the sports days. My kids are all out of sports now. I've been looking at the role of Satanism recently, especially in conjunction with neo-Nazi movements.
Sure.
Going all the way back to the Process Church and, all kinds of real bad shit. And I'm seeing two things. One, increase in the kind of, satanic Nazi, Deva Savitri, kind of stuff. And I'm just curious whether you've seen that, and what the kind of influence of that. Not all Satanists are bad. Some Satanists just they just think differently. That's
they think
fine.
fallen angels.
But there is a very, very serious, it seems to me, connection between some of these satanic movements and
like 09A.
Yeah.
09A and
Adamov and all of that.
So occultism has always been, as you know, like history of Nazism, it's always been a very present theme in there. I think some of the violent social movements that we see within the extreme far right, would the National Socialist black metal scene, that whole thing really embraces that stuff. The pan-Europeanism that exists in that movement, the whole ideaship of Varg Vikernes, living in the land, the true the true European heroes are of the land and of the race, all that kind of stuff. These guys attach that into eco-fascism. They start building on these ideas and continuing them into. It's a really displeasureful area of study. I've looked into a lot of it, particularly because of my study on the actual music. I listened to some of it when I was in the movement, but then, which it was actually equally as bad there when I was in the movement as it is when I'm outside of it, looking back. Just a lot of the cult sort of following of it too, the sense of it, winding its way into accelerationism is really not surprising to me. I mean, when you talk about guys talking about getting together a militia and these death sort of death cult people that want to fight for the end of the race war, all of that kind of stuff, it really does wind everything together. And it's sort of that collective identity piece of we can have Satanists, we can have we can have violent neo-Nazis, we can have you name it. So it's kind of something that we really don't want to see as ideological congruence across all of it. So where you get, Christian far right with Satanists, with all of them together working for the same cause. And that's what accelerationists want. They just want to see everybody together. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Wow.
Syncretism is a thing that I've learned a lot about, which is combining these different movements together. So you take Christians and expose them to these occult ideas, neo-Nazis ideas, and they're already halfway there because of their beliefs. And so
Well,
thank you
that's
for that.
fascinating,
Appreciate it.
gentlemen. Well, we've kept you 1 minute too long, so we are
Yes,
going to
get
let
out
you
of
go.
here.
I promise two things. One thing, let people know where they can find you or your organization.
Yeah, sure. Our organization, Center on Hate, Bias, and Extremism, is we're online, and any of the any connections to our research, we post most of it up on our website.
What's the website?
It's
Ontario Tech, Ontario.
Yeah, it's Ontario.
Tell you what, we'll post it. We'll find it.
We'll post it.
We'll put it in the show notes.
Promise us you'll let us know if your son's team wins, okay?
Absolutely will. And we're also fairly active on Twitter too, and we will be up this week through our social media hate conference that's going on. So
fantastic. I want to thank you so very much for being with us today and for the work that you're doing, and it's very, very meaningful. Thank you.
Yeah, sure. Thanks,
Brad. Thanks so much.
Get the W, bud.
All right.
I'll see you at the symposium next week.
Yes. Yeah, we should all go. Yeah. Wow. Gosh, Jim, that was amazing. And what a great lead into Hellscape, because I think some of the things that you have planned to mention, we touched on, but wow. Isn't it wonderful to see, not only have we had, we've had people from Norway, 3 people from London, we've had Australia, we've had Estonia, now we just had Canada, and all of us fighting the same battle.
It's global. Everyone sees it. Everyone. The thing is,
then why won't the military declare it?
Well,
declare war?
Yeah, it's not the military that declares
we're in a
it.
hybrid war.
We've been we've been in one for 6 years. Yes.
And they're just playing like, oh no, it's nothing. We're good.
No, they're not playing. Oh no, it's nothing. It's good. The military. We don't want the military to declare war. Okay, like that.
Well, we don't want a kinetic war, but we need our intelligence agencies to say, yeah, this is happening. And
we need our leaders, our president.
Yeah. This is
him too.
No, I don't think he means use the military on us. I
don't want
to. No. Yeah, no.
Speaking of Mike Flynn, like Mr. Military Intelligence, we should be using some fucking military intelligence to put a stop to this shit.
Yeah,
like it's all in the open. That's
Why does he still have his rank? Why does he still have his pension?
Why? Well,
who knows? Why? He got pardoned, so whatever.
Yeah,
I
got to tell you, I floated that out yesterday about seeing that stripped, and the majority of folks that I intersect with think that's a really good idea. So that would certainly, shaming somebody like that, it was a Ruth Ben-Ghiat idea, of course. Shaming somebody like that, just like when they took away Giuliani's ability to practice law in DC and New York, shaming somebody who's clearly compromised in myriad ways is one way to actually deflate them. So stripping those medals and doing that. So let's go to legal briefs and Hellscape.
Okay, so let's see here. The legal briefs.
Show us your brief, Sean.
You got coming up.
I will use that joke every time.
That's not going to get old, I don't think.
No.
Never.
So.
That's up there with like fart jokes, right? That's just.
So this morning I was planning on doing the legal brief on the billionaire lawsuit against Meta, which is interesting in its own way because he's bringing a criminal charge. It's in Australia, but it's a little different. And unfortunately, he's just charging them for criminality on the fact that they were scammers were using his image and likeness for selling things. Anyway, I saw this before the show, and this is a lawsuit filed against Cawthorn, so to make him ineligible to run for his position in the next election.
Wow.
Young Matty Cawthorn.
Wow.
So Madison County,
what is the nuts of that?
So the nuts of this is saying because he was involved in January 6th, right? He's violating certain acts, and that he should not be able to run for office.
Absolutely.
Ron Fine is he's the legal director of Free Speech for People, an organization that's funding the challenge to Cawthorn's candidacy. So they're actually filing. Yeah. The interesting thing about this is, depending on how this works, down here, he says we absolutely pledge to do the same thing and file the same. If Mr. Trump decides to file for re-election, we absolutely intend to challenge the candidacy as well. So this is kind of a test run for them in this lawsuit, right? So we have the midterms coming, and then depending on how that goes, Trump, tries to run again, they're going to file the same lawsuit against him, and we'll see. It's an interesting time. I haven't seen one like these actually filed in court, and so we'll see what happens. But I thought, can you
actually reach out to him and see if he'd be willing to be a guest? Because sure. I think that this is the kind of thinking that we need to see in this country, because he's not the only one involved in the insurrection who currently is in office and should not have the ability to be in office another second, another day, and certainly not to run for re-election. So that's right. This is encouraging news. Fantastic. Yeah. Wow. Okay. Thank you so much for that, Sean. That was incredible. And we now would like to get on to Hellscape.
Jim Stewartson's Hellscape. Oh, fuck.
Jim, you're the only one that gets the full screen intro.
Oh, fuck.
Oh, fuck.
Oh, fuck. You've been busy.
What you been up to, man? You've been doing your thing.
You've been busy.
I have. I've been I've been posting a lot on my Substack because I got deplatformed by a bunch of fucking assholes. And
ops.
That's the technical term.
Yeah.
No, cyber thugs is the technical term.
Cyber thugs.
Which we learned from Bowsy.
Speaking of, I just got an email threat from one of my attackers, the Dark Lord of attacking, who gave me 24 hours. So by the time this airs, I may or may not be around.
But that letter is in the hands of our lawyers, so there's that.
Yes, a number of people. But so all of this shit and getting bounced from Twitter has given me time to really take a look at the people who are attacking all of us, and to look real hard at the same time at the origins of this whole psyop, Q in particular, because there's a transition from 2016, early 2016. This thing got started up. A bunch of troll crews got started up. Microchip got started in early 2016 and so
tell our viewers who Microchip is.
Microchip is one of the worst trolls in the history of the internet, who had thousands of bots, racist, white, like anti-Semitic, dangerous, basically troll that spent a huge amount of time promoting Pizzagate, promoting Seth Rich, promoting other incredibly, harmful and dangerous propaganda operations. And Microchip is Justin McConney, for sure, as I have recently found out. Justin McConney was Trump's Twitter whisperer. The guy who literally taught Trump how to tweet. And so when Trump got a hold of his own Twitter, apparently McConney decided to start Microchip and generate hundreds of millions of impressions of propaganda leading up to the 2016 election. So Microchip was promoting spirit cooking and Podesta emails and all that shit.
I've always said that Trump was like the world's biggest troll. So find out that he was but as far as the impact that he's had, so to find out that he is actually, we knew he was a trained propagandist, but to find out that he actually has a relationship with you've shown me some of the content that this person puts out, and it's, I don't even, do we show it? I mean, it's
Yeah.
it's just, it's beyond, the
Microchip.
pale.
That was from the day before Q started, Operation Titty Twister, which, guess what, was designed to get people suspended from Twitter.
Oh, wow.
So
when you're talking 2016, you're also talking about the impacts on the election, which we now know
this is
was
2017, to be clear.
Okay.
So Microchip didn't stop after the election. So Microchip kept going for the next year, constantly supporting MAGA 3X operations in particular. MAGA 3X being this political action committee that basically ran psyops for Peter Thiel and Mike Flynn. Started Pizzagate, did, all of that stuff, ran a bunch of harmful ops through early 2017, and then just went away, just sort of disappeared around April. And then all of the same people, all the exact same people who were in MAGA 3X, which was set up like ISIS to, have cells which go out and do activities, all those same people popped up to start Q. So remember, MAGA 3X, Mike Flynn and Peter Thiel's operation, and Microchip is the guy, along with another dude named James Brower, who was also in MAGA 3X, and lived in Rhode Island with Mike Flynn. That is the guy who actually wrote the first several Q drops. Is a guy named James Brower who worked at MAGA 3X. So we have all of Mike Flynn's people all the way through, starting from before the election, collaborating with Trump's employee to PSYOP America.
That's what I'm trying to get at.
In conjunction with WikiLeaks. So Microchip, for example, was all about the WikiLeaks, all about pushing the Guccifer and the WikiLeaks and all of that shit, right? Like generating hundreds of millions of propaganda impressions on Twitter leading up to the election.
So that's what I want to get at. Tell people how this impacted our 2016 election and continues to impact us moving forward.
So Pizzagate was an op where the Russian government hacked John Podesta's emails, as everyone knows. In one of those emails was an art performance by someone named Maria Abramovich that involved something called spirit cooking. And WikiLeaks and Guccifer released these emails of this spirit cooking and started inventing this whole fiction about Hillary Clinton being a satanic pedophile who eats babies and does all that shit. And that there were babies being held in a pizza parlor outside of DC. And who goes to the pizza parlor to do a big video about is Jack Posobiec, who is one of the founders of MAGA 3X and was lauded by Mike Flynn for his fantastic work as a warrior for the insurgency. So MAGA 3X, again, I cannot overstate this organization. This
Very
one
important.
Organization was formed at the RNC, or at least the plan was formed at the RNC, because at the RNC was Peter Thiel, was Mike Flynn, Trump, every neo-Nazi troll on planet Earth. They were all there, and they all came up with the plan to PSYOP America in order to swing the election, and they did. They successfully did.
And I want to say right now, the reason that Jim is not on Twitter, in case anyone's confused, is because of the work that he does in this field. Nobody else is doing this kind of work. Nobody else is digging like this. And quite frankly, the reason that you are not on Twitter is because of this very important work that you do. And I'm making that point because of the way that you have exposed Flynn and these ties. We now are seeing mainstream media and some of the, reporters who've been doing a lot of reporting on Russia. And David Korn, reached out on Twitter to ask people about Flynn, and you corrected something very, very vitally important. Flynn is not crazy.
It wasn't on Twitter. It was a story, and the story was called "Why is Mike Flynn so crazy?" or something, like basically saying why, what made him turn crazy, and that's unfortunately disinformation. I don't think David Korn means that. I've read his work.
Yeah,
He's an
he's
amazing journalist.
Yeah, right.
But Mike Flynn is not crazy. So there's a difference. He is a psychopath, but he is not crazy. There are lots and lots of extremely functional, extremely powerful psychopaths in the world. That doesn't make you crazy. All of the stuff he says, all the insane shit he does is designed on purpose as part of a psychological operation. It is not hard to tell what he's doing. It's not a mystery what he's doing. All you have to do is actually look at who is involved, what did they do, and what is the end result. And all of those add add up to this guy working with the Russians and Turkey and God knows who else, Saudi very likely,
Israel,
Israel, at least the far right part of it, got together to help destroy American democracy.
Yeah,
and
is still doing it.
And by putting a fucking Russian puppet, a Russian mafia don, in the fucking White House. Somehow we managed to survive that for 4 years, but we can't cover all that up and pretend that he wasn't there in the first place because of a bunch of active measures.
Yes.
Like Mike Flynn paid $28,000 to a guy named Brian McCauley. Brian McCauley is the FBI agent who convinced New York to reopen Hillary Clinton's email case right 11 days before the election. By itself, that probably flipped the election. Flynn not only paid him with Turkish money, he went on Fox and all kinds of TV shows to crow about it, to brag about it. So let's be super clear. The same people who are attacking me, working for Flynn, psyoping America, are the same people who stole the 2016 election. Literally the same people to a person. So that's the reason why this is important. It's not a historical curiosity. It's not we're not looking for the mysterious Q. It's not a fucking mystery. It's a psyop by people who want to destroy America. And I'm glad the New York Times sees that Mike Flynn is at war.
Yeah.
I'm glad that David Korn thinks that he's not right.
Yeah.
But he ain't crazy, and this is nothing new. And we have to start naming the people who did it, watching what they're doing now, and doing something about it. Otherwise, we're finished.
Right. It's very. So go ahead.
In defense of the David Korn piece, what he does lay out how strange some of his notions are, but ultimately he's asking, but
that's not helpful. His strange notions are well understood what his strange notions are about.
Yeah.
And I don't think it's helpful to create a mystery.
Well, there's a whole David Korn, to be clear, is not a part of this, but we have seen an entire op that's the flank of the Flynn army that is trying to float that he's just crazy or weird or whatever. No, dangerous. So let's just be super clear. RadPod Truth Survives is going on the record saying that Mike Flynn worked with the Russians and probably other foreign enemies to attack America from the inside, which impacted the election of 2016. And that attack is ongoing. So take it seriously. Take the work that this team does seriously. And thank you so much, everyone who has been hammering at us, because clearly the work Jim is doing right now is game changing and very important, in my opinion. So thank you for that. And now that we are putting out that urgent beacon, I think it's time for that palate cleanser of digital dissent. And I think we have something today that is just going to blow everyone's minds.
It's another algorithm. I mean, it's an anagram. It's an anagram algorithm. I'm going to post.
Anagram. Ooh, there's
I'm going to post some of the anagrams
in with the lizard
in the Patreon.
No.
Anagrams are going to be for Rad Pod and Chill, I think, for the most part, because that's just really too fun.
That's fun. And there's a bunch of them. No, this is a video I did a little while back. This is just totally off the radar. I sent it out and Heidi said you should play it. So this is it's a fun, since we're some geeks and gamers in here, we're going to play a little geek and gamer love song that was done by myself. Wow. So we'll see. Hopefully you guys like it. And yeah, here we go. It's called Dedicated Servers.
We can play two-player any day or night. When you're online, girl, everything's alright. It's just you and me, girl, my heart container's full. Across the foreign mines to the land of Hyrule, to explore your dungeon, throw a bomb or two, blow up a few walls, slay the boss for you, cut your grassy cavern with my magic wand, shoot my silver arrow till the break of dawn. Got my handy glove and my blue potion, put my magic key in your Quake medallion. Let me unlock your treasure, give me access rights. You can check my code, make everything alright. Wanna test your levels, wanna know your aim. I'm not a player, girl, I invented the game. On the FPSs, I'm too lead to mess with. I frag butter sticks just to see the head split. Keep all the jibs like a Vietnam necklace. Breathless, it's too easy for me. Wanna see your source files, how are you put together? Wanna save your hard drive and back you up forever. Build a VPN tunnel so we're always connected. We can exchange files and keep the data collected on a dedicated server that we manage together. Give you admin rights so you can make it better. You're my Laura Croft girl, you're my Princess Peach, and we can build a firewall the black hats can't breach. Wanna test your levels, wanna know your name. Not a player, girl, I invented the game. The game. Not a player, girl, I invented the game. Not a player, girl, I invented the game.
Sean. I think we've just had our show has just launched its very first hit song.
I don't even know what to say, man. Holy shit.
Dude, you're gonna give someone admin rights on your server? That's gotta be love, bro.
That's totally love.
Admin right? Wow.
Yeah.
Admin rights.
It's been a minute since Ice-T liked any of my tweets. I wrote his book back in the day, The Ice Opinion. And then I also, like 25 years later, wrote his first wife's book. So, and even though it was very loving, it's been a minute, but the other day he liked a tweet. And so that's an indication that I will be able to keep reaching out to him to come on the show, because obviously Ice-T's rad. And we're gonna play that for him. At least 30 seconds of it.
Oh, God.
He's hilarious.
No, it's the whitest, lamest, it's the most suburban white boy.
Exactly, but
it's nerd.
Awesome.
It's nerdcore, bro.
It is straight up nerdcore. Yeah. So actually,
nerdcore.
I wrote this there was a movie I was working on, and I wrote it as a joke. And the movie never came out anyway. So then my friends, there was a World Star Hip Hop song entry contest, and so it was for a video. Yes, I made the semifinals. Like this was, I mean, it got destroyed, but it was so funny and good. Like they made it. People like joke voted it through, so I made it to like the semifinals. Like World Star Hip Hop. There's like some hardcore, And I love hip hop. I'm a hip hop head, but this I put this in there, and to my surprise, it made it through 15,000 submissions, and it made it to the round of like six. It made it to the round of 16 because people were just jokingly pushing. Yeah.
It was the
back you up
hand slap.
forever.
Okay, that's my favorite. I sent it to my son this morning. He's been quoting you, so that's a good sign.
If your hard drive and back you up forever.
Oh my gosh. Well, you guys, this was a very serious episode, a very insightful episode.
It was
Every
great.
episode is rad. And we always need the lulz.
I hope some, well, I guess it won't come out till tomorrow. But anyway, the symposium I'm signed up for, it's free. I recommend everybody go check it out. It's all this week. So we'll have the description, the links, and the info down below.
Nothing more timely.
Hey, Sean.
Yep.
Before we go, will you pull up that Give Send Go for the truckers? Let's see how much money they got now.
I just
in
did
the hour and a half we've been recording, I want to see how much more they added.
What's crazy is that there's so many knockoffs now popping up, which is just gross. You know what I mean? There's if you type truckers into Give Send Go, it's like.
Well, the grift is eternal, bro. Yeah. The grift is eternal.
Yeah, that's our first T-shirt.
The grift is eternal.
Grift is eternal.
Yeah. Another one is there's why do they need to raise 16 million? That's like their goal. Jesus.
That's a lot of diesel.
I mean, that's a lot. Yeah.
How much does diesel cost in Canada? How much diesel fuel will $16 million buy you?
You just like saying diesel.
Their site they're getting hammered, man. Their site can barely come up. I mean, it's
really
struggling.
Wow.
Yeah. Well, they did have that article in Russia today about how they're facing botnets and DDoS. What are we at now?
3.6 million.
What is that, like $300,000 since we started recording?
Yeah.
I mean,
something crazy like that. That just doesn't.
And I'm sure it's all in $5 donations from pensioners. LOL.
This is
anonymous 20.
Yeah, 20. Sure. Yeah.
This is crazy.
Wow.
20.
That's 200.
Was that 250,000?
Hey, let's send it to Martin Scheel and let's get him to report on this next week.
Yeah, I think that was, dude. Yeah, 250 processed but not recorded.
15,000.
Yeah.
Marty, we got something for you.
Marty,
bro.
we got a hot one for you. So, all right, you guys, let's.
And look at these websites, like the rangelangley.com. What it is? Anyway,
yeah.
Dr. Ben Lance, you are in. Oh no, I know this guy. No. I swear to God, one of my friends named Haley Haygood, and I hope that's not her dad.
Anonymous donor is my bestie. LOL.
Yeah, my favorite Russian bestie is named Anonymous.
Yep.
Yeah.
All right, guys.
Wow.
You guys ready? Let's get out.
Thank you, everybody.
See you this week. Bye bye. There we go.
That was hot.
That was a good one. We out.
That was a good one.
Good job.
See you guys. I got just some post production and